welcome to Smarter. And I love the idea of Smarter because we can all get smarter together is kind of the idea of this conversation. So I want to bring just people that are passionate about sharing their ideas, their strategies, their thoughts, especially about the workplace, about talent, and get their message out so other people can glean it and get better. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, Jess, I'm excited to have it, and appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, you are welcome. So let's frame it. First of all, let us know a little bit about who you are and what you're doing today from a vocation standpoint, because we're going to be talking a lot about a frictionless talent experience. So where are you planning to build that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great to be on again. I have the fortunate honor of working for an incredible organization named Bon Secours Mercy Health. I'm the Chief People Officer over our core operations, so I lead big chunks of our HR team: talent acquisition, strategic partnership, workforce planning, internal mobility. I've been with the organization for 11 years, and so I actually started in a completely different area of HR, and that's our reward space, so benefits and compensation. And we thought we'd throw me a curveball in the middle of the pandemic to run these really critical elements of our organization. So we're located predominantly in the East and Midwest. We're the 5th largest Catholic system in the United States, about 55,000 associates here in the U.S., 5,000 in Ireland. We are a pretty old school health system with new school ideas around innovation. So we've done a lot to invest and diversify our organization through innovation.
Yeah. What's really interesting vocationally, you don't often see that path, right? Coming from compensation and moving into that talent world.
Yeah.
But man, I know you pretty well. It sure seems to be such a great fit for you. You're incredibly aware around the talent needs. And so were you surprised by how quickly you acclimated to the talent side of the business?
Yeah, just throw me into the deep end of the pool. It was
Seriously?
Literally January of 21 when I assumed this role. And in the middle of the pandemic at that point, it was really starting to heat up in terms of the impact on our workforce. But honestly, we've talked about this: purpose, a calling, growth mindset, all of that really played into how energized I am to do this for such a cool organization.
Yeah, and it is a cool organization. Talk a little bit about kind of that 100+ year kind of foundation of the organization, because I think that's the old school piece of it that you want to pull straight forward for the next 150 years,
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, I mean, our organization talk about pioneering women, and that was the women religious of the 3 congregations that continue to sponsor us: the Sisters of Mercy, Sisters of Bon Secours, Sisters of Humility of Mary. 150 years ago, you would have bishops calling for support of populations that didn't have education, didn't have health care. They were mainly Catholic, but not exclusively Catholic, because the mission of the women religious was to care for anybody and everybody, typically without being reimbursed. And so that legacy is so profound. It's so important. The tens of thousands of caregivers on the front line embrace that spirit. We as leaders embrace that spirit, and it's really hopefully going to drive us for the next 150 years.
Well, and I had an opportunity to do a strategic day, planning day, with some of your talent leaders in Richmond.
Yes.
And I actually heard that in a profound way from each and every one of those professionals. And then the tenure in that group just blew my mind, because it's a complicated business.
Yes.
It takes a lot of effort. There is real stakes on the line, right? This is not just a bottom line dollars and cents or improve sales. These are people's lives. These are people's moms and dads and kids. So I was really impressed. Like, it's not just words. I felt it in your organization when I went into your clinic and met with your team that day. So that was pretty awesome. And so you've obviously already talked about, you were thrown into the deep end of the pool during the pandemic. The pandemic now is not over, right? When I talk to healthcare people, like, yeah, sure, yes, but it's really not over. But in some senses, some of the big pressure there is over, but it's not really over for healthcare, because you're seeing sustained headwinds from a talent standpoint, where, some of our latest stats, right? You're going to add 2.6 million jobs between now and 2025.
Yep.
So you're going from one kind of pan, into another frying pan, right?
That's right.
The heat is still there.
Yeah.
So let the listener know, from the person that's seeing it, feeling it, measuring it every day, kind of what that really means. Like, talk about that struggle.
Yeah, I mean, vacancies exploded in the middle of COVID. We had turnover explode, supply of talent, particularly nursing, dwindling, folks leaving the workforce altogether, advancing their retirement, going on travel agency contracts. So when you have low supply, you have incredible demand. With the aging population, with COVID, it doesn't make for a really good recipe right there. So, we struggled with vacancies that were 3 times what they were in the pre-pandemic state.
Right. And you're not alone there. That's healthcare.
It's
pretty
healthcare
much across the bear.
Yes,
the whole entire marketplace.
That's right. Yeah. And we've stabilized turnover. We've seen reductions in turnover the last 12 months, which is outstanding.
Yeah, that's a great start.
But our vacancies are still in double-digit percentage land, which is not good. That's not comfortable. And what they say is, if you have no margin, you don't have mission. So we're trying everything we can to get this right.
Yeah, that's actually a profound statement. I'm a true believer that every mission worth doing can be sustained, and certainly this is one worth doing. And what I'm kind of interested in, kind of digging in here, is there's a lot of organizations that could just be let's put our finger in the dam and just hold the water and hope something changes, and you're just dealing with the day-to-day what's in front of your face. What I think is so great is that although you're dealing with the immediacy of what you need to do, that's not your long-term play. You have got a strategy that you're looking kind of down the road and around the corner, saying we are going to be ready when the market shifts or when we have to answer this long kind of sustained talent need.
That's right.
We want to build a system, and that's really this frictionless talent experience you're talking about, because that doesn't necessarily answer the question today, does it?
No.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you and your team every day say we have to hit the ground running to keep our system in the right place today, and we're going to build for the future? That's a pretty big task.
It is. Yeah, and I think it starts with really basic economic principles: supply and demand. Demand is going to be ever present for us. I mean, the aging population, as I mentioned before, the United States, we're not getting any younger. The baby boomer generation is going to drive a lot of that care. And supply is simply not there. We do not have enough caregivers to care for that demand. So from our perspective, what are we going to do to increase the pipeline? But when you increase the pipeline, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to capture or captivate that pipeline.
Yep.
So what are we going to do to captivate that pipeline? A frictionless talent experience from moment of sourcing to the onboarding and post-boarding of those associates is a critical part of what we got to do.
Yeah. So what are the big kind of grinding gears right now that you want to put some grease on and get frictionless?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, the talent acquisition process in its entirety has historically been a very individualized, tactical process. And so what can we do to engage with the recruiters to actually position them to be top of license? So take some of the mundane tasks off their plate.
Yep.
And allow that talent to be positioned in a way that that recruiter can tap into that talent really quickly. So technology is a huge part of it. Automation, artificial intelligence, responsibly applied is a big part of that as well.
Yeah, no, the automation piece, I mean, it just levels up these senior people I've met, levels up their capability to do the high level work, meeting people and meeting their needs.
Yeah.
Then it's the personalization as well. You've talked a lot about, how you're reframing, looking at what talent you actually want to work for Bon Secours Mercy Health, and how you're going to equip them. That's another piece of the friction, right? We now know we can personalize a message to different segments of the population. So talk about how you're looking at the population you're going after, and maybe saying, we're actually looking at that differently as well.
Yeah. To us, it starts with an associate value proposition. If you're really clear about that, you make it a profound position for that candidate to understand, I'd probably be a good fit because that's important to me. And we spent a lot of time really clarifying our associate value proposition, using a ton of data, external, internal data. And where we landed is around mission, growth, and flexibility. Those are the 3 areas of distinctiveness. So if we can build our recruitment platform to just blare those out loud and position in a very personalized way for that potential caregiver, I think that's a big draw to our organization.
Yeah, I thought that triad was really great when we talked about it. We've hit on mission, right? We know why you exist. Talk about those other two a little bit more intimately and kind of why you landed on those.
Yeah.
Because I think it's almost the pivot on what Frictionless means to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it starts with data. You can't drive good strategy off of anecdote or gut feeling. It's got to be really data driven. And so we worked with our HR analytics team, has an incredible amount of resources from associate insights, an analytics, data visualization perspective. We have data engineers, data scientists on the team. We have incredible folks on that team. And what they did is they really focused on our 10 dimensions of our associate experience. And so we measure our associate experience on a quarterly basis. It's a really rigorous process just to get the sense and feel for what our associates are telling us, what they're thinking, what their hopes, dreams, desires are. And when we did all the analysis, we felt, okay, the areas of distinctiveness that are going to really differentiate our organization mission, we've always done well, as you mentioned, Jess, but that growth and flexibility, people are telling us they want challenge, they want growth, they desire flexibility. We have a lot of young caregivers right now, so flexible schedules, being able to swap shifts, being able to work smaller shifts than the traditional 12-hour shift. Those are important. They're telling us, I may not want medical insurance. Can you give me something in return for not using that on your platform? Well, could we offer them maybe tuition? Can we offer the student loan repayment? Can we offer them things like child care, elder care? Can we pay them more if they are not adopting our medical plan? So those are the things that we think as a recruiter, whether an external recruitment or even an internal recruitment, because we're doing a lot on internal mobility, if we can really be crystal clear about that value proposition, we think we're going to compel people to join this cause.
Yeah. I think the flexibility, though, it really strikes me that you're actually, through being flexible for your workforce, you're becoming more flexible and open and nimble inside your organization, which I always say, the more flexible you are, the more you're close to life. The more rigid you are, the more you're close to death. And I see this nimbleness coming into this system that you're saying, we're rethinking the game plan completely.
That's right.
So when you're talking about getting the sentiment from your teams and from your caregivers and the staff of Bon Secours Mercy Health, how often are you doing that, and how fast do you feel like you're able to react? Is it once a year? Where are you at in that? Because I think our listeners will be really interested, because engagement is something we always talk about. Satisfaction, we're always talking about. We're talking about retention. Those things all kind of map together.
That's right.
But I think people can miss the forest for the trees. We measure it, but we don't do anything. So talk to me about, it sounds like you're trying to react real time with kind of this changing marketplace.
That's right. Yeah, we kid we're agile, and that's not capital A agile, we're lowercase a agile. But we're measuring stuff literally every day. We utilize Qualtrics as our platform for perception. We're capturing onboarding, we're capturing exit, we're capturing engagement, which we call, again, our associate experience on a monthly pulse basis. We do a full census review once a year in the spring, and our team is bringing us insights constantly. We do focus grouping, we do reputation analysis externally. There's a lot of work that goes into just keeping our pulse on what's going on.
Yeah, that actually blows me away. I think the commitment to that, because you're actually putting time, talent, and treasure against that effort. And you talked about, and you've shown me kind of it's 8 categories inside of your organization, the analytics piece and the talent acquisition and all of that. But analytics is really important to your organization, but it's also something that's important to you as a leader. And I think leadership often defines, what we decide to prioritize.
That's right.
So talk to me about how much information do you need? I would imagine you're a data guy that would almost look at as much data as possible, but you can get to a point where you get either over capacity or
Yep.
you can't process everything or it slows you down.
That's right.
How do you balance that? Because I think you probably need all the things you just mentioned, but where do you know the beginning and end is so that your team can absorb it, understand it, the community can really go, oh, we understand why this is happening and we understand where it's coming from, but you're not overloading the org.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's a really critical part of what our team does. And if our mission speaks to the heart, the data speaks to the head. And so our team is inherently going to be very data driven. Again, we cannot make decisions based on anecdote or an N size of one or a focus group of one, which is oftentimes a joke that we use within our organization. So we're constantly trying to figure out, I've used this for years, the what's up, the so what, and the now what.
Yeah.
It helps that I started in benefits. I worked with a lot of actuaries, a lot of reporting. And so my love of data is that's part of what we do. It's part of what our leadership is about. And so being able to distill an unimaginable amount of data into really just solid points for us to consider, that is an art in many ways as much as a science, and our team has got it down. So bringing us insights constantly. I mean, we make decisions about what benefits we need to invest in. In the middle of the pandemic, we invested a lot in those benefits because the market was so intense. And we didn't just say, let's throw out $100 million here. No, we did market research, market data for the comp team, all of the internal perception to say, hey, parental leave, we need more of that. So we quadrupled it in 2022.
Yeah.
So those are some examples that were all data driven. We'll probably have to make tough decisions though, because cost of labor and how unsustainable it is. We'll probably say, okay, where do we need to recalibrate that investment or reposition that investment elsewhere? So it's not going to be done on a whim. It's going to be done through a data and perception team.
Yeah, no, I think that also helps you start to define where you see the friction and where you can release or
100%.
kind of grease those gears again.
Yeah.
And in some of those traditional places, I think a lot of HR and HR communities struggle inside their group. Onboarding, I know, is an area that you're really working on hard. And but I also think that one of the things that I think really is indicative of your culture is you're willing to say something that doesn't work, right? You're not just happy ears and you're just trying to make it look good.
Yeah.
You're willing to say, hey, this part of our process does not work.
Yeah.
We're willing to face that. And when we do that, it just speeds up the velocity of being able to correct it in a real authentic way.
That's right.
You find that I don't sense that there's a lot of resistance in your organization when you actually say, hey, you know what, we got a little dirt on our face here and we got to clean it off.
Yeah. I think our onboarding is a good example, and that is a huge challenge. Heavily regulated as an industry, so you got to do a lot around occupational health and fit testing and drug testing and licensure. The INT or the IT provisioning is so critically important, but so critically challenging because of HIPAA and other security concerns that we have for patient confidentiality. So when you throw sourcing, recruitment, occupational health, onboarding team, our IT team for provisioning, and then clinical education on day one or day two, a lot of different people involved with that, a lot of opportunity for a pretty crappy experience, quite frankly, but we are really focused on making that right. So we've done some things foundationally within our functions. We've moved the onboarding team into our talent acquisition team. We're working closely with our OC Health team, our IT teams. We're trying to get it better. We're on our way. We still have a little bit of a ways to go, though.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think participation, right, that actually brings commitment. And so getting everybody involved and saying you can be a part of this and it's your plan too,
That's right.
I think can be so important.
That's right.
So we've kind of encapsulated a little bit of your leadership perspective, the importance of data and accurate data, not too much, but just enough, right?
Yep.
And then being able to actually express that in a way that it makes sense to the people that you're trying to and you're looking to serve.
That's right.
Ultimately hire and then serve.
That's right.
So the frictionless talent experience, then you're on a journey right now. one of the things I want to ask you about is maybe a little bit more leadership oriented again is how, I know you're determined, but how determined are you to make this a complete frictionless talent experience? Like maybe, let's say the pressure for hiring diminishes much faster than we thought. Mm-hmm. Do you still think this is the right thing to do? Do you still have that vision around people? Do you still keep pushing to make it a great experience?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, from my perspective, we need to represent our mission in a really profound way. And so, if the economy slows down, if the labor market starts to soften, I still think, the development of really good talent through skills and capabilities, that's not only good for the associate, it's good for our mission around what we call realized equality. So are we truly representing the diversity of the communities that we're serving? Right now, we have a little bit of a ways to go to do that, but to be able to tap into talent, give them an opportunity for really high-paying jobs. I mean, nurses these days are making upwards of $100,000 right out of the gate. That's a really powerful mission moment for our organization. Yeah. So, yeah, we will be motivated regardless of where the economy is.
And I get that sense, and I think it's so important when organizations determine they're going to just improve, period.
Yeah.
Because that it's about every 18 to 24 months, we're hit with something that we didn't foresee.
Yeah.
But to be able to say we were kind of ready for it because we kind of prepared and battened down the hatches, understood who we were, strengthened our interior, right, and with our people, that they just didn't even want to look anywhere else. And I see that as your vision there as well, is that how do we create a profound experience that's mission oriented, that really retains people because they choose to stay, right?
That's right.
That extra discretionary effort, you ask them to go the extra mile, they do it because it's their mile to give.
That's right.
That's the power of building, I think, a psychological contract. And I think the frictionless talent experience is really that.
Yeah.
You're building a psychological contract with the people that you're serving, which are the employees that are ultimately serving your patients.
That's right.
Maybe talk a little bit about kind of, that as an effort around your brand as well, because you've been doing a lot of work on that, because that's part of that friction.
It is.
If people understand who you are and what you offer,
that's right.
It can be lost.
They're so incredibly intertwined. And, the Bon Secours brand and the Mercy Health brand in the markets that we serve, really powerful. We're either the largest or second largest employer in the communities that we serve. And so we feel like in many ways the talent acquisition team, the HR team, is representing the broader patient brand and experience for our ministry. And so it's a heavy responsibility. And so we got a lot of work to do to get it to a point where people look at us reputationally in the same way that they might look at a Mayo Clinic or a Johns Hopkins. But we desire to have an associate brand, an associate value proposition that's as profound, as opportunistic as that, both externally and internally, because this notion of frictionless, it starts as much with your internal associates and the internal candidates and what they can do to grow in their careers as it would be hiring a new grad nurse or an experienced nurse or a respiratory tech in our communities.
Yeah, that's great. So as we wind this down, all good smarter podcasts must end. As we wind this down, I just want to actually, as just a citizen or out of our community, I want to thank you for the leadership that you're taking with Bon Secours Mercy Health inside of healthcare, because it is a very stressed industry right now for a lot of legitimate reasons. And to know that we have people like you at the helm, I think that's really, will give people confidence. So you and your team, thank you. I just think it's worth saying. But I want to give you the last word. Again, we can all get smarter together. So from that vantage point, Allan, what are you thinking, and what message do you want to deliver to the people that are listening?
Yeah, I think it is around the team, and I did want to throw before you stole the thunder there, Jess. But the team is so critical on this, and so. I think I'm a pretty humble servant to my team. I think you are able to, as a leader, define the challenge and bring clarity to the solution for it, but the team is the one that's going to actually execute against that. And so our entire HR team, our talent acquisition team, but probably more powerfully, our frontline operators, our nurse leaders, our people managers, our frontline staff. That's what we wake up every day yearning, that purpose that you mentioned before.
Yep.
I literally think about that nurse who's just coming off that 12-hour shift and just, probably did some really difficult things physically and mentally in that 12-hour period. And to me, that's what drives me every single moment. So
it's a great motivator.
Yeah.
Allan, thank you so much for joining us on Smarter.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I feel smarter now, too.
Yo, good. Well, that's good, too. Yeah, thanks again.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining me at Smarter today. It's all about leaders talking to leaders. And with Allan and Bon Secours Mercy Health, that was just a really healthy conversation, pun intended. I was actually thinking about a Gandhi quote when I was thinking about Bon Secours Mercy Health and what they do as the 5th largest Catholic hospital healthcare facility in the United States. And the quote is, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And I certainly feel like that's exactly what's happening at Bon Secours Mercy Health. And I wanted to touch on a few, I think, critical points from the conversation I had with Allan today. The first big takeaway is old school groups, whether it's healthcare systems or any other organization, but old school sometimes has to think new school to keep relevant in today's marketplace. And I certainly felt that with Allan and the vision they have around a frictionless talent experience. I thought that was huge today, really important. And so this idea of having new ideas, taking on some of the old thoughts and restructuring them is always important, especially we're in a constant and continuous state of change in the talent economy today. So whether it's their people on the front lines, like the doctors and nurses, embracing that spirit with the people they serve, I know that the HR leaders and talent leaders at Bon Secours Mercy Health is doing the same thing. And they're going to actually help take Bon Secours into the next century and beyond, providing the care that they do. The second lesson I thought was really particularly insightful from Allan is that it's a must-have too for kind of almost any HR leader, is a frictionless talent experience comes from the economic principle of supply and demand. So there's a demand for constant talent at Bon Secours Mercy Health, like at most organizations today. It's never ending. So you have to make sure that you're creating experiences for the consumer candidate that we have today. So making sure that you're challenging how you're doing things is really important, and sourcing, onboarding, post-onboarding, making sure there's good succession planning and internal talent mobility inside your organization, and that it's AI driven, and that your candidates or your employees can actually self-select and plan their path with you is really important. And what I'm hearing from Allan and the team is that they are looking for any barrier to break it down, to simplify, and to clear a path for every single person that works at Bon Secours Mercy Health to know that they have a future there. And then finally, the final point is, if you're on a mission as a company, that's great, because that's something that's heartfelt and heart-led. But data also speaks to the head. And so we want to make sure that the heart and the head inside of the world of talent is being addressed. So what I heard from Allan today is this idea of data is driving their decisions. You need to capture, measure, and quantify what you do. Be data-driven. Make data-based decisions, and you will have success. I sure hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I know I certainly learned a lot. And a special thanks to Allan and the Bon Secours Mercy Health team for making all of this new vision actually come to life. This is Jess Elmquist. Thanks for tuning in to Smarter. We'll see you next time.